I turned it down. How come it still does that every time?
I have no idea. I really
Maybe
don't.
this phone. Oh
I
well.
yeah. Um,
Oh,
yeah, that's kind of funny. Um, Hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel. Welcome to a girl, a guy, and a movie. And my name is Bruce. You'll see the only hands here. And then my lovely co-host Janet from Another Planet is over to my right. And got seating arrangements taken care of. Six Nations, 31 Kings says hello. Hope everyone is doing well. Elle says echo. And then Elle's like, somebody delayed watching the stream. Yeah. Sorry about that. All right, Echo. It's all right, bud. We'll figure this out. Somehow this will get squared away. All right. So, Janet, how are you tonight?
I am doing good. Am I delayed?
I don't see a delay. Say
Okay.
something else. Yeah, you're fine. You're
Okay. Just
you're
want to make sure.
you're like a 0.5 millisecond behind on your lips versus your voice, which is almost instantaneous.
Okay, that's good. But I'm good.
Oh, that's great. I had a fun time on Saturday with you.
Yeah, it was a blast. I laughed a lot.
Then I watched the stream again yesterday night. Had a lot of fun doing that. I also watched a couple really bad movies. You know what is making me really appreciate your selection is the fact that I go back and I watch films that I probably shouldn't. Movies that offer you nothing but just guilty pleasures.
Nothing wrong with that.
I watched the four movies for Universal Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recommend it. I would not recommend that to other people. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them quite a bit, but
I only saw one, and that was the Kurt Russell one. Those
no,
other
no,
ones?
no, that's the movie just called Soldier from 1998.
Oh, okay.
That
Yeah,
also
you're right.
has the lovely Connie Nielsen, uh, one of the characters from movie Equilibrium, which we keep bringing up in chat. There's a bunch of really good things about Soldier. Main thing is that it is a parallel movie to Aliens and Blade Runner because they're all in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight's movie, you selected this film from 2007, starring Kevin Costner, called Mr. Brooks.
Mm-hmm. And William Hurt.
William Hurt's in it. That's the most enjoyable part about the movie.
Yeah, it's one of them.
I
It's their interaction is what I loved.
I love seeing them fence off of each other.
The laughing parts, like when he's in the back seat and
Yeah.
Kevin's in the front, and then the William Hurt's character will start to do that evil laugh, and then Kevin Costner joins in. Like I just thought it was that was one of the best things about the script and about the actual story was their interaction, even though they're in the same brain.
Yes,
they're two totally different personalities.
And that's something about that movie that I really appreciated. Although can't really have William Hurt driving them around because he's just the conscience, and so he's kind of like a less powerful version of Gabriel in the movie The Prophecy. Gabriel keeps asking the dead people to drive for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoyed William Hurt's portion of it. In fact, to the point where after the movie was finished and I understood what happened, I'm not a complete idiot. I watched it and I liked how it ended. But then I went back and I watched some parts with William Hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I really am going to miss him as an actor. He just died earlier this year in March from metastasized cancer.
Yeah.
It got into his bones. So that's going to hurt. He was 71 this year. Ooh. Elle says somebody delayed watching a stream. We got everything sounding good now. Bowsette says hello. She's not feeling well. Bowsette, please get well. Drink some water, change your socks, take some Motrin. You know the routine. She'll probably throw a weighted brick at me in my face for saying that to her. Um, Also, with this movie, you have some other really good big people in this film. Demi Moore is in this movie.
Mhm. Yeah, she was this was a really good part for her, I think.
Yeah, this is probably her most enjoyable part I've ever seen her play. I hate to say that because that sounds like she's done nothing but eye candy roles and GI Jane,
Mhm.
because those aren't the same.
No.
She's she's not she's not eye candy and GI Jane at all. But we got Dane Cook. That in 2007, Dane was the most popular baby name in America. I only know that because of crap that went on that year. Marg Hellenberger is in this movie.
Yes, she plays his wife,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Brooks's wife. She did a good job in this too,
And then
as
uh,
the unknowing wife and mother.
then you have Danielle Panabaker, and she plays Jane Brooks' daughter.
Mhm.
Boy, does that get interesting.
Yes, she did a good job too.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with Dane Cook's job in this movie for someone who was not really an actor,
No, he's
just
a
a stand-up comedian, which and he really wasn't really good at that. So, when I got to watch it, I wasn't expecting a very, prominent part or a believable, if you wanna say that way, part by him. But to me, this part was, like, written specifically for him, the
I
way
have
he
to
acted
be
in it,
honest.
I thought.
I really felt the same way because I don't value Dane Cook at all. The most I've ever enjoyed Dane Cook was in a movie called Waiting from the turn of the century.
Mhm.
I don't know if you ever saw Waiting or not.
I didn't see it. I've never seen him in anything before. This is the only movie I've ever seen him in.
Okay, this is his best role I've seen him in. I've seen him in a few movies. Waiting up until now, Waiting was his movie that I thought he did the best in. But that's really a low bar. That's he acts. His style of acting is like Ryan Reynolds, but suck out all the charisma.
Uh,
Yeah,
well, he's definitely in this part, in this movie, he was definitely better than Arnold's, not Arnold, Tom Arnold's character in
yes,
anything I've ever seen him in. And, uh, it was just a very unique character role for him to play, because he seemed believable as a sicko, if that
yes,
makes sense,
yes.
um, for his character and his character arc. I mean, the part where he pees his pants, I mean, just every little detail of him walking around in the rain, almost getting hit by a car, all the different things that he was able to do, they seemed very believable. Even when he was sitting in the car and William Hurt and Kevin Costner are talking about he has a gun and he's going to shoot you, because he could smell the gun oil and he says it smells different. I mean, this just little details like that is why I just love this movie. It's very, very intricate into the details about the psychosis that Kevin Costner's character is in. Uh, and we don't know why he's a serial killer, but we know in after the scene with Dane Cook in the graveyard that he has been doing this a long time. Just
Mhm.
like you said, I've killed people in very different ways, many different ways, uh, before this. So before he became the thumbprint killer. So and the fact that he was a family man, had a child, and ran a business
Yeah.
and was upstanding in his community, all like BTK and the Golden State Killer and all these other the what was his name? The one that was in Washington State, one of the biggest serial killers in the United States,
What?
Green River Killer. He had a wife and a kid, and they went to work and came home and still murdered
They
hundreds of
compartmentalized that
people.
bad side of them, and then whenever it was time for them to let that bad side out and play, they let that bad side out and play, and then after they killed, they're just back to work. I'm gonna go pay taxes now.
I know, that is what was so the writer of this screenplay, I thought was, very on point, the details, behind, each scene, not just with the dialogue, but with the way that the characters portrayed each part in each scene is what made it even better. The interaction between William Hurt and Kevin Costner's characters, even when he was alone, he was by himself, but you wouldn't know that because in his mind, he's two different people. And then the dialogue between and how he would get upset with William Hurt's character for belittling him and stuff like that. But then the scene where he finds out his daughter had murdered someone and that his daughter had the same illness as he did, the empathy in that, which serial killers are not supposed to have. Different details like that is made it so it drew you into the character. And when Williams Hurt's character put his arms around him and
Yep.
when he cried on his shoulder about the sadness of him knowing that his daughter was just like him and whether or not he should just let her go to jail, so that her dark side wouldn't be able to come out again, and just let her be punished for it, or can he do something to save her from herself?
Well, I mean, not
I
only
think.
that but Mr. Brooks also goes to the AA meetings because he feels kind of bad about what he's doing. And so,
Well,
yeah,
I don't think he felt bad. I think he felt he just didn't wanna do it because it was risking what he had in our realm, you know what I mean? He didn't seem like he had empathy for the people he's killing at all, you
no,
know?
not in the least bit.
So, but the thing is, he did have fear that if he did get caught, how it would humiliate his wife and
Yeah,
his
how his
and his
wife
daughter.
affected. And then once his daughter comes out with her little statement like, "Oh, I'm home now," and then "Oh, we want to talk to your daughter about this murder." What? that was that was where I stopped painting figures. I threw the light up so I could watch the TV unobstructed,
Yeah.
and I could just enjoy this movie and watch it the way I was supposed to, which up to that point I hadn't been doing. I'm gonna admit I was painting figurines. I got about 20 of them with some new colors and got 4 finished yesterday. I was really happy about, but I I really started paying attention to this movie once Kevin Costner found out his daughter was Little Miss Sunshine. Not really. And I really I had to watch this movie unimpeded.
Yeah, the
So,
part though when he's in the car and he's coming home with his wife from the, banquet they were at for him to get Man of the Year,
mhm.
which was really by the Chamber of Commerce or whatever. I thought that was just
The association,
it
yeah.
was like it was so perfection, uh, for him to get up and do the speech and do all the things that a normal what we all look at as a normal everyday person that's a hard worker, a good taxpayer, a great pillar of the community, which is like exactly what kind of things we're going through right now with the corruption and in all the nook and crannies filled with all these psychos, and then and to have this, be a movie that came out, what was it, 2007? Is that what you
Mhm.
said?
2007.
So it was like it was just really I don't know, it was just so realistic at that moment to look at it that way. They're driving home and the intuition of the wife when she says, "I think she's dropping out." You know,
Yeah.
just from the little bit that she knows of her daughter, and she's not even a killer, she's just a normal mom that's trying to make sure her daughter's going to college and her husband's ready to go to his business meetings and, to trying to be a good wife and a mom, and her intuition on her daughter's choices, and then it was funny is how, when he tells his wife, "No, I don't think she's gonna do that," and the wife says, "Well, you always take her side. You're always sticking up for her," and things like that. And that sounded like a typical mom and dad talking about their daughter that's just going off into college.
Yes.
So, it showed you how he passed back and forth in between 2 different realms, and then you have the voice in the back seat that kinda leans forward and he says, "We could just stop by and just have a look," you
Mm.
know? To put that little temptation in the back of his mind while he was in the middle of, a
Eating
weakness with his
ice
wife, with the
cream.
dialogue, it was like he was the split personality in there is knowing this is my chance to leap out and maybe he'll want to, just have a nibble, to have a
Just
taste
a
of
bite.
this sweet dessert.
Yeah, just a bite. Just a little pinch.
A sample, and it was like it was a tiny little nit, little pick, pick, pick,
I'm
like
just
someone
I'm just
pecking
gonna have
on the window to get your attention.
I'm just gonna have a
So
sip of this alcohol. It's not gonna be a whole gulp, not a whole shot. Just a
yeah, so it was, that I thought that whole, scene bringing him into it, and then he's thinking, and you see him look up in the rearview mirror, and you can see him in the back seat. So,
just
because
grinning.
his interaction, there wasn't anyone there. So at first, you don't know if he's really there or if he's not, and then you see that he isn't, then you realize it's in his imagination, you know?
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a real, and then when you realize it's William Hurt in the back seat, and you're like, "What? I didn't know he was in this movie," you know? I don't know, I just thought all that was just very intriguing, and it really pulls you in to want to know more
Yep.
about, at least for me, what was going on in this whole scenario. And then when he says, "You want to go get something sweet?" Because the dessert wasn't really what I wanted from,
Yeah.
to fill my sweet tooth. So they stop by, and the whole time she's talking away, like a normal wife, the ront, ront, ront that no one hears, the
Mhm.
droning out, and he's focused the whole time on this couple. So that, if you think about it and you back up a little bit, you're thinking, well, somehow through whatever job he has, he somehow saw this couple together, and for some reason, this couple drew him in to want to kill him for whatever reason, whatever his fetish um, is with wanting to kill these couples and make them pay for whatever it is that they did, because you don't really know what it is, because you just know that he's going to do something to these people. And then the whole thing, he's already checked out the house. He already knows how to break in and bypass the alarms and everything, because the other character, the one that's in the back of his mind, is already saying, well, you already have it all set up, you just have to show up. But he goes, "You're not gonna deny me of this." So basically, it's almost like, um, William Hurt's character is the killer, and he's just the vessel that brings out William Hurt's character and lets him play once in a while and then puts him back in there, and that's why he's like, "How, why are you doing this? Why are you denying yourself of this? When if you're just careful and you do it the way you do, you will never get caught." And they all say that, all serial killers think that they are, because 'cause they're narcissists, down deep, and they all feel like they're untouchable because they're smarter than everyone around them. So I just thought all of that, the interaction between William Hurt and,
Yeah.
his wife, what's her name again?
Earl Brooks is Mr. Costner. Marg Hellenberger is
Yeah, Marge, her character, the way that, they all 3 interacted in the same room, because you gotta remember when they are together like that, she's gotta act like he is not there,
yep.
to not look at him, to not,
You don't
even
acknowledge a word he said.
subtly move, to hear the other person speaking or acting or doing anything. That all of that was phenomenal, the way that they were able to, pull that off, whether it was through all camera angles or what, or it's just great acting. It was just, to me, just little intricate details like that was just very, very intriguing and very entertaining. For the charisma between the two characters was just phenomenal. I just thought, I can't believe how many people have not seen this movie, because this movie was very well made. The acting was phenomenal. The script was great. The scenes were good. I mean, even the actors that they murdered, you know, the
Mhm.
young couple, I mean, they did a phenomenal job at being so realistic. Because all I did was going, the whole, I was like, shocked by the whole thing. And then after he goes in there and then she starts screaming and he tells her, calmly to stop screaming and to sit up or whatever, that type of thing. Very calm. And so, I don't know what that word is. Uh, Not a care in the world, attitude. And then he shoots him and then he spins around and he's rubbing himself like he's this.
Almost sexually into it.
Yeah, he is. He's just very getting off on it. He's getting off and then he's repeating the gunshot and the looks on their faces over and over again while he's spinning around and just massaging himself and just, oh, like, oh my God, that was the best thing ever. Like the enjoyment, he's getting from the murders. It was just morbid and sick and creepy. I mean, all in one, few seconds of a scene, and that's when you see William Hurt's hand go out, and then he says, "Stop," and you can see him put his hand on him, and he stops and looks, and he's like, "Sick." They're sick doing it with the windows open, with the curtains open. So
Yeah.
even though he just murdered 2 people and
But
shot
he
him
was
in the
touching
head,
himself. He was
he's
touching
talking
himself.
about them being the sickos.
Exactly.
So it was so, I don't know, the whole scene was just awesome. I mean, exhilarating, thrilling, scary. I mean, just had a whole bunch of different emotions all running through you watching this scene. And then he goes, it's almost like I wanted to get caught or something, like that. And he's still
Yes.
talking to himself this whole time, even though they were really good at showing us to him it isn't himself. It's 2 separate entities, and he interacts with them just like he's another person standing next to him. And I just thought that whole take on those 2 actors working together to to show us this part was just I just loved it. I just thought they were so good at it, and so believable. And then he walks over and he shuts the curtains really tight, and then you don't know what they do until later on when Demi Moore comes in to see, the crime scene and try to piece it together because she's been following the thumbprint killer for a long time, and he's supposedly hasn't killed anyone into over 2 years because he has been going to AA and all this different stuff, but she doesn't know that. She thought he was either dead or in prison or they moved away or something. And, so that all was very, very intriguing, I thought, for that part of it.
Six Nation 31 Kings kind of catches up some people in the chat. We're discussing Mr. Brooks and his interactions between his wife, his everyday life, and his id, which is played by William Hurt. The whole
Mhm.
duality of life as a normal guy and his darker side. Bowsette's like, okay, I've never seen this movie, but it sounds like a real case I heard of a while ago. It might be based on something like that. I wouldn't doubt it. This has a lot of ties to familiar cases that are in various parts of the United States. You never hear other countries talk about serial killers. We're the ones to talk about serial killers. It's like we're the sick nation that always does that.
Well, no, I know a lot of people from Great Britain, and a lot of them talk about it because they do have lots of serial killers from Great
Oh,
Britain
true.
too.
I mean, they were the ones.
Australia also has lots of serial killers. So, in their past, different things, but it's the thing is the intricate details that the writer of the screenplay was able to put in there. And sometimes you have to watch it a couple of times to pick up on the little tiny things, that the detective is able to find, like when she goes back to the scene of the crime and she's walking at night and she trips over the phone cord and knocks it down. And she's like, how did he know that this was here? There must have been more light in here the
Mhm.
night of the murder, things like that. Uh, it's the details like that that give you the inside look of what a detective really might have thought of when they went through it, and how they were able to put themselves in the shoes of the actual killer. And then when she's talking about that she goes, "How much you wanna bet?" to her partner that there's no vacuum bag in here, you know? Little things that I would not have thought of, but, I'm not a detective or anything, but, the details were put in for you as a viewer to get a, inside look at what a detective, should look for if they're wanting to really kill some or, catch someone that kills people,
Yeah.
like that.
I
Uh,
actually bought the idea that she was a actual detective because she's belting out the things that you should be hearing on a crime scene, and she did
mhm,
such a good job at the start of throughout the entire movie. She did a great job, but this is one of those few movies that Demi Moore's in where she actually plays a character. She just doesn't play a pretty face with a nice rack, and she's more than eye candy, and she truly does not have a character that most people will turn their noses up at because a lot of her films are kind of bawdy. Not that that's
yeah,
bad, but she's got a lot of raw characterization in previous films. I don't know what she's like in real life. I don't want to try to pretend, but I see that she's done a lot of films that the same character's been brought up again and again and again, kind of like Dane
mhm,
Cook or Ryan Reynolds.
yeah,
But she really actually sold me on the fact she might be someone who took a lot of criminal justice classes. She might be somebody who knows a lot about the first 48. She might be somebody who's done studies. And it seemed like it was really organic to her. She wasn't trying to act or overact.
mhm. No, I thought she was very believable, especially when they threw in different things that are supposedly going on in her life. Why would she even be a detective when her father's worth $600 million, you know? Different things like that. And her getting divorced from some guy that you could tell was probably just a male model and doesn't know shit and he's a bubblehead or whatever. But because he was exciting and attractive or whatever, and because of her boring job, her tedious job with things that she had to analyze and stuff, she just wanted someone to go home to that was fun,
Yeah,
entertaining, and probably real good in bed or whatever, to take her mind off of her job, right? Just
yeah.
like a guy. So you reverse the role, the detective's got a hot young model wife or whatever, the same type of thing. But in this movie, they reversed it to where um uh they were showing you a woman in the same position of where a man would be and having to put up with, like, she wants more money, for the divorce. She's not going to just take the $750,000, which most people would say, "Yeah, thank you," or whatever, but wants more out of it.
Yeah.
And then the aspect between her and her partner, which, you can tell kind of a bit that they're rubbing each other the wrong way, that they don't really get along.
No.
You could tell that he kind of, for whatever reason, he doesn't really like her that
Yeah, there's
much,
animosity right at the surface level. I mean, it's not on the surface, but it's like
just under the surface.
that quarter millimeter under the surface. Like if you yank a hair out, you're gonna see that he hates her. He fucking hates her to a cellular degree.
It's like just like what her boss says when she's being talked to by her boss, and she's like, "Where are you in the divorce? You got to get this over with because I'm not going to let you have this case because you have this other person that escaped that she supposedly put him in jail."
Yeah,
I can't remember what his name is right this second, but this is another bad guy supposedly that she had already captured. So she is a decent detective because she captured this guy,
but she
but
doesn't
he got out of jail. He
for
escaped, and
her
he's out on the loose. So she wants to put a detail with her to keep her safe or put her at a desk. And she's like, "Don't put me on a desk." And she's like, "Well, I'm going to put you with this guy and this partner that she's got simply for that fact." So the story behind that makes it believable about why this guy's not real happy to be with her, because he doesn't really like her, because she doesn't like to work with people. She doesn't work well with others. And that's basically what her boss said, is that, you don't do well, you can't accept having someone help you, because she's headstrong about wanting to be the every little detail, every stone lifted and looked under. She's very detailed in her whole way of going about being a detective and finding the clues. And she doesn't do it necessarily by legal means. She kind of skirts the issue about getting around things. And the fact that she's on at a scene and she's served her divorce papers, okay, right there, and she's like, "What the fuck?" She's pissed off that this guy was able to just walk in to where they're investigating a crime and hand her papers. So she got pissed off, and that right there, that whole interaction with her partner at that scene makes you realize that they don't really get along too well. They don't talk like equals, that they pick each other like that one's better than the other and the other one's better than back and forth nitpicking like you would see in almost every single detective show, whether it's two guys or a guy and a girl or two women or whatever.
But there's no
So
level of respect there with those
yeah,
two.
so it would look like, I don't know, it just seemed more believable to me
Yeah.
that their relationship wasn't very good because she doesn't get along well with other people. She likes to be totally in control of what's going on around her, and that hurts her relationship with other detectives working with her.
Now
So that was very believable to me.
the sorry chat, sorry people if we're kind of skipping around and hitting spoilers early on in tonight's chat, but this movie has been out since 2007. You had 15 years to watch it up till this evening. That were complaining about not seeing it, talk to me. I got my Discord link in the chat there. I'll drop you a link to where you can view it because it is a worthwhile film, and it's definitely one of those shows it's worth a watch at least one time.
Well, this scene that we're talking about right now, it happens
Really,
when she goes to see the murdered couple, and they're the first couple that's murdered in
yes,
the movie, by the thumbprint killer, and she's the detective, so she shows up, within that morning after they find the bodies. So it's this whole interaction that we're talking about right now really isn't far, far through the movie. It's towards the beginning, when she's first involved, and all the stuff about the divorce and everything is all in this same
yes,
little time span around her first finding out that the thumbprint killer is still he's back. He's been gone for 2.5 years, but where was he? So she's like on top of knowing this other guy escaped and that she might be targeted because he said he was going to get her for bringing him in or whatever,
or
and
insert.
she doesn't want to have anyone, what do you call it, shadowing her or whatever, having to be with her because she just thinks that she can handle things for herself. So that scene after that, when she's investigating, trying to put two and two together about the thumbprint, because she thought she was pretty close to maybe finding out who he was,
Mhm.
because he doesn't leave any DNA. He puts a Ziploc bag, a gallon bag over his hand while he's holding his weapon and zip ties it or whatever. So a tiny piece of plastic supposedly goes through the first victim when he shoots the gun and shoots him in the head. Then he poses their bodies. And she said normally that she said, well, he was pissed off this time because remember when they walk in, you're shocked because it's the guy laying on the bed, the blood spatter on two different areas on the wall above the bed with the bullet holes. But now this time her face is down in his crotch,
Yep.
you know? So normally, and she talks about it, she says normally they're all romantic and cuddling and kissing and in bed together, like a weird thing that he has to do, a ritual he has to do with the bodies. But this time, and we know why he's pissed because he was mad when he realized that the curtains were open, that they were doing it on purpose. They got like a voyeurism sexual need urge out of knowing somebody might be watching them make love, and that's why the lights were on and they had the curtains open and people were watching, because that's where you find out later on when Dane Cook's character comes in during the investigation, is that he's taking pictures from his third story or whatever up apartment window of them two down there making out, getting off on each other or whatever. So when all those details start coming out, that's how all these characters become interactive, is because people see something, and instead of going to the police, he goes to see the serial killer himself because he wants something from him
Yeah.
instead of telling the cops, because he has pictures to prove he's the thumbprint killer. And that whole scenario I thought was really good, because remember, it was at the same time that his daughter is waiting to see him because she had dropped out of school, and she was surprising her dad at work. And he's like, that's when he realizes his wife was right when she said she dropped out of college. And he's like, "Why? Why'd you drop out? You got to call your mom," whatever, that type of thing. So he's dealing with that. And then he has to be surprised by Dane Cook's character showing up to have a special meeting with him with a package full of pictures. So that whole thing was, that's when the tension is like going up and up. And then you see William Hurt's character sitting on the other side of the room saying, she's lying, talking about the daughter, that she's keeping something from you. So he's very intuitive about other people that are hiding shit, because he's an expert at it. So he can see it, like when Dane Cook's character is lying, and when his daughter is lying, other people lie to him. He knows. I mean, instantly, he knows that they're not telling him the truth, because he's a liar. His whole life is a lie, basically. So he's very intuitive when he sees other people doing it.
There's a couple things we haven't talked about yet. The killer that you mentioned a little bit, this Matt Schulze plays a character by the name of Thornton Meeks.
Mm-hmm.
Going around with his girlfriend, played by Yasmin Delawari, plays Sunday.
Yes.
His girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the weakest part of the movie. It really, like, if there's like a tepid, bland ass part of the movie, it's that part.
Yeah.
And the choreography in that portion of it, like, they skimped on that part of the film, because I counted it, because initially when I'm watching the scene, like, oh, she's got a 7-round magazine. She fired out like 15 rounds, and I went back.
Yeah, that was the longest
23
I've
rounds
ever seen with people with 3 guns, and it was 100 rounds about went off in that hallway. I thought that was pretty funny, but when I first saw it, I didn't notice it. But this time when I watched it, I was like, wow, that was a huge mistake that they made. It was like the editing messed up by editing too many things together in one scene that didn't belong, because there was no way that they could have had that many bullets.
No, like they forgot to do some proper editing.
Yeah, somebody wasn't counting 1, 2, 3, when the shots were going off.
This is like the simplest thing in the world. It's fucking, it's better than financial math. It's just counting up, kids. I need a fucking 10-year-old to count on the fucking set.
See, that's why editing is so important in a good movie. I mean, any movie, and it takes away from a really good movie just because the editor did not do their due diligence to make sure that the scene flowed like it was supposed to.
Yeah, and I disagree. I don't disagree, but that scene where she gets into a gunfight with Meeks and his girlfriend, and then Meeks fucking squeezes a round off in his girlfriend and then takes his own life. Man, if they were YouTubers, I would have unsubscribed. I was so like, oh,
well, to me, all it showed was that he was a total loser. He didn't give a shit about his woman that supposedly bent over backward to help him escape, and was doing all these things for him, and he just dumped her like she was a bag of rocks at the end, because that showed his true colors. So I really felt sorry for her, because she was madly in love with a psycho, and he treated her like shit.
He's
So,
one of those guys. He met this lady in an email, and she fell in love with him when he was incarcerated for a brief time. And then once that happened and he gets out, then she realizes what a dirtbag he is. So she kind of becomes an associate dirtbag with him, and they're hanging out together doing stuff. and she probably thinks at first it's kind of cool. We got some extra money here. We took these people over here. We knocked this over here. She probably
Mhm.
didn't expect Demi Moore to give her grief with a fucking badge. Her character
Yep.
probably did not expect that, and that's like the
But the
worst
what
part about
was
this movie.
that one scene though, that was, farther back into the movie, but, before that happens is when Dane Cook shows up with the envelope with the pictures,
Yes.
okay? And when, Kevin Costner pulls the pictures and he sees it's him
Hmm.
with the gun
Hmm.
in the window before he shuts the blinds with the 2 dead bodies behind him, that
On the
he's
bed.
done, that's over for him. And then you see William Hurt going, "Oh, this is bad," because he knows this guy's got me. Has he gone to the cops? And they're talking to each other the whole time. He's just looking at the pictures with his daughter sitting there, right?
Yes.
So you got another character in a room with 2 people having a conversation that has to act like there's nobody there, you
Yeah.
know? So, all of that to me, I just thought it was really, really good. A phenomenal scene with them 2 talking about whether or not Dane Cook knows, or has given anything out, okay, any information to anyone else. So then he sends the daughter home, in a taxi, has the secretary take care of it, and then he goes in the other room, the conference room, to talk to Dane Cook's character. And then he's while he's talking to him, they're analyzing him, by his reaction and what he's doing, how he's fidgeting in his chair and everything. And then you got William Hurt saying, yeah, he's probably got the stuff in his safety deposit box and he's laughing and stuff, in the background. So I can't even, it was amazing the job that William Hurt and Kevin Costner did for this one character. Their interaction and every scene that they interact in was just so good. You don't want to miss it because it's such good intimate details in the mind of a psychopath, basically.
Yeah. This
And they
movie is
did such a good job at it.
like any guy I know that his wife or girlfriend is addicted to crime shows, shove this DVD or link under her nose and say, "Go watch it, and go have peace for an hour and 45 minutes." While she does that, because she's going to just fall in love with this film, except for the fucking Thornton Meeks and Sunday bullshit, because that was that part almost pulled me out of the movie. That was so bad, and I don't
Yeah.
know why. I don't know why I'm so critical about that. But and I just finished watching Jean Claude Van Damme, and not one, not two, but four Van Damme movies this weekend. And I was upset about the bullet count in this movie. I'm just gonna lay that dead
Well,
puppy
that was probably
right
because
there.
you knew that you were reviewing this one. So little details like that jump out to you when uh, that's something that's important that somebody might want to know about, that you're trying to tell them whether or not you'd want them to watch this movie or not. So little things like that would stick out when they normally wouldn't if you were just watching it for your own, pleasure.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But you're right, though. That's what I'm saying. Small little details like that take away from a really good script. And
like
it's all goes back, just like in most of the movies that I've griped about, a lot of it had to do with editing because they were cheap. They paid good actors like William Hurt and Kevin Costner to be in a really good movie and do really good at working together in every scene they were in, and then have the editor go because they were cheap on editing. So
yeah,
little things like that do make a difference on the overall finished product of a really good movie that was, to me, very good. I mean, it was really phenomenal acting between these two characters. Their interactions were just, to me, it's worth watching it over and over again just simply for their interaction. Like you said, that was the
yeah,
parts
it
that
was
you
really
really thought were really good, and it is. It's not something you can scoff at. I mean, to me, both of them were top notch
Mhm.
on their two portrayals of the same person with
I
two different personalities, which
I'm
was
going to
excellent.
say something that's slightly upsetting here. This movie was supposed to be the start of a trilogy.
Oh, it
If
was?
if you read the IMDb trivia page,
Mhm.
Bruce Evans had been talking to Kevin Costner about it, and they were thinking about it. The girl that played the daughter was into it. The details are over there. Um, I don't know if I could have watched this movie as a trilogy. I don't know if I could have watched this trilogy if they didn't upgrade their production, their editing. I wouldn't have wanted to watch the third film, because if I would have had to watch another movie where they fuck up on the bullet count.
Well,
I
see, the thing is, normally, you wouldn't if it even without that scene, the movie would have been fine.
Yeah,
It wouldn't have taken away
it
from the
would have
movie, but
improved
it
without
did
it.
take away from the movie because they did put it in there. See,
Yeah,
that's what I can definitely say that,
this
that
movie
it
this
brought
movie
the
is,
movie down a notch
yeah,
because of it.
it's why I rated a 7 and not an 8. And I
Mhm.
took it down a full digit because of that. I mean, I know that's not much for you guys, but you know, I have a YouTube channel now. It's not super famous, but I get like $1 a month off it, and that's enough for me to have to pay taxes on it eventually. But I'm just
Mhm.
gonna say that, like, I do take this kind of seriously, and whenever I look at this, like, the Thornton Meeks character, he should have been just exposition. Him and his girl should have been exposition. Hey,
Well,
girl,
see, his character, though, wasn't important in
no,
the overall arc of the movie,
no,
okay? Because when you had Dane Cook say, "I don't want money.
yeah,
I want you to take me with you the next time you kill someone," because
he
he
wants to
said,
protect
"The
that.
seeing what you did when I was watching you through the camera was such a rush," and he was like, it was just, oh, and he was so, excited about what he saw that he said, "Once you start," remember he said, "Once you start, you can't stop. It's addicting." And when they were driving down the road, when he said, "Okay, we'll set this up and we'll find someone to kill, and I'm gonna let you pick the person." So Dane Cook's character was all in at this point
Yep,
because all Kevin Costner cared about, he didn't give a shit about who he's going to kill or any of that shit. He didn't could care less. All he wanted was what Dane Cook had. He wanted to make sure he had the pictures and the little things you stick in the computer. What is that called?
USB
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah, the little drive, the thumb drive. That's what he wanted, and he pretty much knew, it was probably in his apartment or in a safety deposit box or something. And then the scene where, because here's Dane Cook thinking, "Oh, I got this guy, he's a serial killer, and I got him like that, and I got him by the
Get him
balls.
here.
I got this, that, and the other," and he wakes up in the middle of the night, and Kevin Costner's sitting at his bed with a flashlight in his face. He's already made copies of his keys, and we don't know what else he'd done, but it scared the shit out of him when he realized this guy was in there, he coulda killed me. He goes, "If I wanted to kill you, I woulda killed you already."
Yep.
So in a way, it was like he was a little toy, and he wanted to see what could happen if you rattled the little hamster in the cage a little bit, and that's
Rattle.
basically how he was looking at Dane Cook's character. So, because he likes living on the edge, and so after he killed that couple, remember he went back to his little box room where he makes glazes and stuff like that because he makes boxes for a living, which I thought was very interesting in the choice of what his career was and why he was rich, and all that stuff. But it was a perfect setup for him to get rid of evidence because he had that thing that he heated up boxes and the wax and the resin and stuff, and that's where he put the pictures and stuff. And his other personality is telling him he can't keep any of them. You got to get rid of them. He burns his clothes. He burns everything. And then he opens that secret closet, and what's in there? All black suits and boots and everything he needs to wear to go and take care of somebody else, to
And
kill whoever it is that pops in his head.
I
But
really liked that there's some parts of the movie they kind of show you, but they don't show you everything, and they appreciate you by being a thinking human. He takes a flight. He has a disguise. He has a cane. he does all the right things to look like somebody who's not Kevin Costner,
Not a threat.
not a threat.
Yeah,
And he
and
does
he wants to look like someone that nobody would think twice it would be a problem.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so I really appreciated that because it treated me when a movie does that, that's the director telling you, the audience member, I trust you, you're a thinking person. I don't have
Mhm.
to lay out every breadcrumb from where Hansel and Gretel are at to where the edge of the forest is. You're going to see about 6 breadcrumbs laid between these two kids, and you're going to get an idea that they're smart enough to figure out how to get home if the birds don't eat the fucking breadcrumbs.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's the director saying, I trust you're smart. I trust that you have the capacity for critical thinking. And not many movies do that because really critical thinking is not taught in America nowadays. But
Mhm.
the thing is that when the movie did that, I felt like I had something to where me and the rest of the audience that appreciate this film, we were all part of kind of like this little, not a secret group, but we were kind of elite because we saw something that other people don't want to, that they didn't need to. And a lot of moviegoers wouldn't enjoy this movie. It's a highly rated film. I never heard about it until you mentioned it last week.
Mhm.
And it made me feel happy that at least 15 years ago there was a director and a script writer that said, at this point we let the audience in on this and we just let it go. They'll
Mhm.
figure it out.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing is that, like, they left enough, open areas to where you could fill it in with your imagination, because you're not stupid. If you can read and you're paying attention to this and following along, you're gonna be able to figure it out.
But
And
there's a lot of other movies out there that they treat you like you're an idiot. There's
Well,
no
it's
other
like because
show.
nowadays people aren't happy unless every detail's laid out. I mean, "Oh, how come this, that, and the other? How did this go together?" 'Cause they need it told to them. But this movie wasn't like that. It was because they didn't have to do that because the acting alone closed doors for you. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And filled in areas, the gray areas for you in your imagination by just watching the characters. And, that was one of the things that I thought was really, really good about it. Like when they're taking Dean, not Dean, yeah, is it Dane Cook? Dane, I always call him Dean, I don't know why. But Dane Cook around for him to see if he could pick somebody, to kill. "Who do you wanna kill?" And he goes, "Can I kill someone I know?" And they both laugh like, "This guy's an idiot."
No.
And I just loved it. I just loved how, there are 2 guys, they're both serial killers, they're the same guy, but they have different subtle differences about their personality that, add to the richness of the serial killer himself. And, when they're driving along and that guy pulls out in front of him on the road, and then you got Dane says, "I've always wanted to kill someone who's fucked with me in traffic." Remember? Who hasn't thought that? "You motherfucker, I'm gonna kick your ass." You're flipping them off and shit because they almost could have killed you, because they weren't giving a shit about other people on the road. So all of us has felt that way.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of the guy, the asshole on the road, or the woman that, almost took out your whole front fender, that kind of shit. So I just
And
thought that was a really good line from him getting to say that because I don't know anyone who hasn't felt that way. It's been
but
behind the
you
wheel of a
saw
car.
Kevin Costner's face whenever he hears that,
Mhm.
and he's like, "No, we can't kill somebody that you got pissed off at in traffic. That's too easy." That's
No, and then he said, "Yeah, is that who you really wanna kill?" And he says, "Okay." So they
you
start following the guy,
I felt like
remember?
I felt like when he said that, he was showing and telling with his face, "Oh, yeah, we'll go do it," and he's got no intention of following through. I didn't think he was gonna do it when he first started following him, and whenever he abandoned the process, I'm like, "I was right."
Well, that's the whole thing to me. I felt like he just wanted to get it done. He just wanted to get this over with because he just wanted to get rid of this guy,
But you
okay?
can't can't just murder people in traffic because that's
Well,
too
no,
easy.
not
But
in traffic, but they had to follow him and get his license plate
yeah,
number, find out where he lived, do all and that's what they were doing. He was trying to
yeah.
show him, "This is what you have to do if you wanna do it right and not get caught."
And the thing
Okay,
is
and
that I just from my own studies, I'll tell you that like you don't want to do if somebody cuts you off in traffic, forget about it. Forget their license, forget the fact they flip you off, forget the fact that they almost put a dent in your $20,000 dent in your $50,000 truck. Forget it.
Yeah,
Fucking forget it. And so you just you because if you do anything to that person, it's going to be aggravated. And it's a wonderful modus operandi when you think about it, but you have to kind of understand how the fucking detective mind works and how the criminal mind works. They're the same mind, just one of them
yeah.
gets paid to figure out the other one.
And then when they pull into that parking lot, okay, and they're waiting for the truck guy, right? The guy to come out and they're because they're following him because they're supposed to go back to his place, find out where he lives, and then that's when they're gonna make the plans to go and kill this guy, right? Well, that's when that other guy that after they've been looking into, remember, William Hurt's character and Kevin Costner are on his computer and he's wearing his boxer shorts and a t-shirt, okay, looking on the internet to find out as much as they can about the detective because Dane Cook gave him the business card saying that she had went there and asked him questions about if he'd seen anything from the building across the way when they noticed when she opened the curtains and looked up and saw that building. Oh, they were probably had the curtains open. So maybe somebody saw something. So Dane Cook gives the card to Kevin Costner, and he takes that and starts researching on the internet about this woman. That's how they found out how rich she was and that she's captured this person and that person. She's a really good detective. And why would she want to be a detective when she's rich? You know, all this different stuff that he thought she was really intriguing and was very interested in her, her who she was, you know, her details about her, simply because she was intriguing about answers that he wanted to find out about her.
Yeah,
And, you know, and this is the person looking for them, the thumbprint killer.
yeah, and
So,
there's a lot that goes into her characterization, which I really appreciated as just a moviegoer.
yeah, but the fact that he's doing his research shows you how intricate and detailed he was as a serial killer,
Hmm.
and why he's gotten away with it so long is because he was very detailed about making sure he knew everything he could possibly know and not leave any gaps before he went in and took somebody out. That's how he could make sure there wasn't any fingerprints and no hair, no blood or any of that stuff, and no connection through his job or whatever he did. Uh, to leave a gap where he could be caught. Okay. So he was very detailed. That's why later, when he goes back with Dane Cook and he says, I changed who we're going to get rid of. And when she shows up at the apartment of Dane Cook, okay, remember?
Hmm.
And that's when his whole apartment is empty.
Hmm.
Okay. And the only thing left there conveniently is the work order of where they're taking all the stuff. So, you know, right then when she finds that the whole apartment's empty because Kevin Costner had everything moved out. He's rich, you know,
Yep.
it had all moved and it may not even be really at this other apartment. He just did it so Demi Moore, because he knew her character was her person was going to go there, okay, to find out. The only thing is, she didn't realize at this time that her ex, soon to be ex, was murdered by Dane Cook and Kevin Costner's people. And that whole scene to me was just really, really good. When he goes there and he's so excited that he's going to get to see someone die, okay, and they're hiding in the kitchen, and and he's making all kinds of noise. You know, he's squeaky shoes, he's bumping into stuff, and then you see Kevin Costner just keep looking at him like, oh my God, this guy is an idiot. I can't wait to kill him. You know, you can
Yeah.
tell that he's thinking about it because this guy's a dumbass. And then he's so scared and nervous that he pees himself. Okay. So and Dane Cook did such a good job.
Yeah.
I thought he did such a believable job at being this dumbass
He was a
that has
wonderful
no
show, wasn't
idea. Yeah,
he? He
he
was a
had
wonderful
no idea how deep he was. You know, he's in way over his head with a real serial killer, okay? and he thinks he's got the whole thing handled because he's got a gun in his pocket. It's
Yeah.
just it was just a phenomenal scene because this guy's just bit off a huge chunk of meat and there's no way he's going to be able to eat it. You know what I mean?
He can't do it.
So I just loved it. I thought that whole scene was really good. And then you got Demi Moore's soon to be dead ex-husband with his lawyer, all excited and happy because they're going to get, maybe $3 million out of this whole thing because she just wants to settle and get rid of him because she wants to follow this case and be able to work on it before they hand it over to the FBI. And she can't because her boss already told her, I'm giving you 3 days and I'm pulling you off the case because we got to get this other guy and blah, blah, blah. But during this whole time, she doesn't know that Kevin Costner is about to kill her ex for her. In a way, it's like a tribute to her, basically, because he
Mhm.
looked up to her being so smart and being such a good detective, being able to catch these people. See,
You almost
so
got me. Let me help you out.
so and because he thinks remember, he's a narcissist. He thinks he's God's gift to everyone. He's smarter than everyone because like a normal real serial killers think that they're almost all huge narcissists and think they're smarter than the cops. They're smarter than anyone else and no one's ever going to catch them, even though most of them 90% of them do get caught. It might take a while, but there are a few that don't ever get caught, like that one guy that used to shoot people in their car, and he had like a crosshair on a gun was his label, his insignia. I can't remember what he's called right this minute, but that guy never got caught. And there's been other people that have never gotten caught that they named whatever their sick names were. But like the guy that killed the Black Dahlia, cut her up and whatever, that person never got caught. So there's lots of them famous serial killers that got away with it simply because they were really good at what they did, apparently. And that's what Kevin Costner thinks he is. He thinks that he's untouchable because of who he is, because all serial killers think that about themselves because they're all narcissists, sociopaths or whatever. So that whole thing, and then when they leave and he's telling them, he's even got his other personality thinking that this was all set up because I want to die. I'm going to use you to kill me. I want you to kill me when I'm going to take you to this place and I want you to kill me. And then that way my wife and my daughter won't be humiliated when they catch me or whatever as a serial killer. So I want you to kill me. And that way I'll never be found. And then they'll never know what I did and I won't humiliate them. And he left a note on his desk at his job that he was had a diagnosed with some serious illness or whatever, and that he was dying, and he didn't want his wife and daughter to watch him wither away or whatever and have to live through that. So then, when Dane Cook pulls the gun out, which they knew he would, then he says, "Well, I want you to pull over at this exit," and Kevin Costner's character is like toying with him, this one, and he keeps driving and he puts his foot on the gas and he's going really, really fast. If you shoot me now, you're going to die, so think smart about it. I want you to kill me. I want to take you to this graveyard, and then there's be an open grave, and you kill me. You let me fall down in there, cover me a little bit with dirt. They put a casket on me in the morning, and no one will ever find my body. So Dane Cook thinks, hey, yeah, this is great. I'll get to kill someone myself instead of having to watch someone else kill someone. And I get what I wanted, and this guy's dead and he can't come back and try to kill me or whatever. So he falls for it, and they go to the graveyard, and the whole scene there where Dane Cook pulls his weapon and tries to shoot Kevin Costner, but the gun doesn't work. And then you see his face change of him being all macho to being, oh, what's going on? I'm going to die, And the transition between being a badass to a wimp is like, really fast, but it's very exciting. And he did a great job at it, I think. But when he realizes it, and that's when Kevin Costner says, well, when I went in your apartment, I was really thinking, yeah, I want this guy to kill me. But, I bent the firing pin in your weapon because just in case. I even brought an extra weapon." And he opens his coat and says, "Because I was going to give you this if I decided I really wanted to die, but I decided I'm not going to die tonight." And then he takes the shovel and whacks him over the head, and he slits his throat with it. And then he pushes Dane Cook into the grave, and leaves him for dead, where, because he was a dumbass, and that's basically what happens to dumbasses. They all bite the big one, right?
Yeah.
So that whole thing was all plotted out, and that's when you see his other personality is really happy that he's not going to die. He's not going to let him die. So he's excited about it. But he still told his split personality that I'm not doing it again. After this is over, I'm never going to kill again. I'm going to go back to AA, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other, because I'm going to have a grandchild and I want to be there for whatever.
I want to be there for my grandbaby.
So, that whole scenario, though, the way that it played out, I just thought it was not something you were expecting. There's so many twists and plot twists and stuff in it. And the fact that the partner, they went with Demi Moore to the apartment to see Dane Cook, because they're thinking that Dane Cook might be the serial killer. Okay. And that's what Kevin Costner was telling them. They're going to find your urine at the scene of the crime. They're going to do DNA on it and find out it's you. So now you're the thumbprint killer, So basically what Kevin Costner did was use this dumbass that had to show up with pictures to set him up to take the fall for his crimes. So when they're sitting there that day, the next morning in that diner, him and his split personality, and he's like, most people couldn't handle letting someone else get credit for their work. Basically, like there's still two different people when they're not. They're the same person, and he's talking to himself. But that whole conversation about that is very believable to me. That you would have two people talking about two serial killers, basically talking about wanting or not wanting another serial killer to get credit for what they did, because they all want their name to go up in lights, or have a book written about them, or a movie written about them.
They're narcissists. They just want their fucking name at the high score table, and they want to have that.
Yeah, and they don't like sharing at all. They're very greedy. I mean, that's another thing. If you've watched a lot of documentaries and things on serial killers, they are like that. God, I wish I could remember all these names of it. Jeffrey
The Zodiac
Dahmer
killer is one that Shadow and Son put up there, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but Shadow and Son put the Zodiac.
Oh, the Zodiac, yeah, the one with the crosshairs that I was talking about.
Yes.
That they were never found. They never was able to catch that one. So there are plenty in the Black Dahlia person, and then there's 3 or 4 other ones, like the one in New York, where all the bodies were found in New York City or New York State. I can't remember exactly, but they had a name for that one. So, and they're supposed to be active serial killers at all the time. So all of the aspects that they put into this one serial killer's interaction with his split personality, it may not even be a split personality. It's just his darkness, like the TV show Dexter, when he talks about his dark side, his darkness, his shadow, his other thing that envelops him and is the reason why he kills. And, it's just neat how they use that to almost make it look like it's a split personality, even though it isn't. But the way they took a totally different person and put them in the same room together and have them be the same at the same time, I just thought was genius. I mean, I just love those two people's interactions, the way they laugh about things, the way they interact and make fun of the other people, for their choices. Like the whole thing when the police come from their daughter's college, okay, to interview her because supposedly she's pregnant. She gives you small tidbits of the truth to her parents when she's telling them that she's pregnant and the guy that got her pregnant was married and didn't want anything to do with her, all this different stuff. And then they find the other person supposedly on the college grounds or whatever, or near the college, chopped up really bad with a small hatchet that was
Mhm.
left at the scene,
Yeah.
and that her car is gone. Okay. So for some reason, she bailed her vehicle wherever it is. And then she tells him it was stolen. So that it could have been stolen and used in a crime or whatever. She can write that off. Yeah. The dark passenger, someone put on there.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, I love Dexter. It was I love the books. I've read almost all of the books that they've written because he's still alive and he's still got Rita as his wife and stuff, which is, they're perfect for each other. But,
I'm laughing too much at this here. Six Nations, 31 Kings says the Clinton Foundation. Like, no.
yeah, that's exactly right too. I mean, golly, they got a whole list longer than my arm of people that have just died from suicide or accidentally shot themselves or were shot in the back of the head. Or they killed themselves by shooting themselves
Accidentally
twice
shot
in the
himself in
head.
the back of the head. We have to get it straight here. Come on now.
Yeah, all that. It's just pathetic, but uh I just thought the writer of this script did a phenomenal job at trying to show us the intricacies of what this serial killer's thought process was, and in giving him empathy for his daughter, and that he seemed to genuinely love his wife because he cared about whether she was humiliated by him being caught. Or by his daughter being left, without him to take care of them. And then the fact the daughter says, "Well, I want to take over the box business." Okay.
Yeah.
Because who's going to take care of it when when you're not here anymore? Okay. So now in his mind, now that he knows that she has the same sickness as him, he starts thinking that she's out to get him. So in a way, he's being tortured knowing that there's someone like him wanting him dead. And, how is he going to defend himself from that? Like that one nightmare that he has, and he goes in there with his glass of milk, his night routine, and he kisses his daughter and he says he loves her and he makes sure she's tucked in, whatever. And then all of a sudden she stabs him in the neck with that pair of scissors, and the blood's splurting out, and he's grabbing his neck, and he's falling around the room, and blood shooting out, and then she's just sitting in bed watching him, with blood all over her hands, as he's dying, through the thing, and then he ends up on the bed, and she just, after he lays there, and the last little bits of blood that splurted out of his neck, which the whole thing to me was very realistic, and he lays there, and then she just takes his glasses off and puts them on, and it's just like,
I'm
because
not
she's
my
nuts,
daddy.
you know?
I'm my daddy now.
Yeah, and he sees her that way, and knowing that she's a threat that to even him. So
Mhm.
he now has to live the rest of his life, whatever amount of time he has left, with a serial killer, knowing that at any minute in his own home, he could die. So I just thought that whole circle arc, of his
Circle
character,
of life.
of seeing his own child become him and him being afraid of her, basically, because to me, that was fear. Why else would he dream that, if he wasn't afraid of her? But he loved her too. It was a morbid kind of love for his daughter, and not knowing, what kind of child she was going to bring into the world. The same sickness. Is the grandchild going to have it? All that aspect of intricacies that were written in it. Just like you said, he didn't have to spell it out for you. You just had to have simple things happening, and you're putting it together now of where he is in his life and how he's evolved over time. Because remember what he said, that he didn't ever want to have children. He said this to his other personality in the kitchen when he was crying about whether or not he was going to go and set up to make it look like the daughter didn't commit the crime. Just like you were talking about, he went and he got underneath his big furnace thing that he had hidden in his box room, where he makes boxes and glazes and stuff, where he opened it up and he had passports in there, and he had driver's licenses, he had money, he had weapons, and all different kinds of stuff in there. And he took some stuff out, and then you see him flying somewhere. Okay. And he has a long hair and sideburns, and he looks kind of hippie-ish. and he goes wherever, and then you see him in the car driving along, and in the bag next to him is an axe, a small hatchet, and he's got a disguise on and stuff. And then you see afterward, supposedly he doesn't have the hatchet or anything anymore. You see him getting out of that taxi, and he's got a cane, and he's an old man, and he's walking off, and then he goes to his own car, and he puts the case of cane and stuff off and gets in the car. And as he takes the wig and stuff off, so now he's back to himself, because he went there and killed someone else, a total stranger, for his daughter, so that she would not be looked at anymore, that they had a serial killer that uses a hatchet and leaves it at the scene. The same little details that he got from the detectives that came there to interview his daughter, because he knew they were going to arrest her, because he's a killer and he now knows she's a killer. So little details like that were really good. And the fact that when Demi Moore is investigating, the thumbprint killer, that's when that other guy that got away sees her, and they tried to catch her. Remember, right off the street, and she's walking. She sees the woman, and she recognizes her. In the back of her mind, she's like, I know this woman, but how do I know her? Yep. And that's when the other guy comes from behind her and shoves her in the side of the van, and they're fighting. And that whole scene to me was pretty cool. I thought it was very realistic.
The first encounter with Meeks and Sunday was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that whole scene with the door. That's why I'm saying that one scene did take a big chunk out of the movie because of the realism of it. Taking away, having 3 guns, okay, in a scene, but having, 5 times the amount of rounds going off than it was possible. You know what I mean? From 3 weapons. It was it did make it, even for me. I mean, I'm not into huge, but like when I went and saw John Wick, I took a clicker with me, and every time he killed somebody, click, 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 every time he's killing somebody, because you wanted to see a death count, how many dead people were in these movies. It was a lot of fun. A bunch of us were doing that, and seeing if you got how many people you found, that were murdered or whatever, or fought and died in the movie, which was pretty good. But the whole scene of her fighting this guy off, and then that one scene where she reached behind her like that and grabbed the woman's hair and pulled her head back like that, and she's ramming other cars and stuff and screaming because her hair's getting pulled out while she's trying to drive. Just little things like that made the scene very realistic, and made me go, damn, if that something like that ever happens to me, I'm going to do that. Hopefully I can think about it.
But yeah, I can see where people would say or think that. But fuck, that van scene was great.
Yeah.
But whenever I was watching the scene where Meeks and them met up in the hallway, and it reminded me of this really bad Jamie Lee Curtis movie called Blue Steel, where if you've ever seen
that
movie is right with so many fucking errors, both geographical, gunshot errors. The clips for the ammunition or the magazines for ammunition are just ass. It just whoever is involved, responsible for Blue Steel, like, you have my ire. I don't know if I've explained that yet, but I really hate when normies try to make a police or an action film with gunplay, and the gunplay sucks. All right, and thank God for John Wick, Terran Tactical, and so many other fantastic groups out there that have brought amazing gunplay into movies and made it an art form as it deserves to be. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah. 6 Nations, 31 Kings remembers that. Oh man, Blue Steel. Ugh. Okay. And Balazad's like, always remember to SLNG. And yeah, I just absolutely hate that movie. And that movie there is like, that was the start of where like I started being a movie dick when I was 15. Because I was watching that movie, and she comes out of Central Park, and she's on a business street, not West 57th. And I'm like, wait, she was just heading this way. I know this because a lot of bad New York films where they shot a scene and they'd walk past the tree line and on the sidewalk, and it'd be right 10 foot away from over there is where we're shooting at now, and it'd be sequential in order for the scenes. The editor did his job right.
Mhm.
The movie sucked, but they do this in all these movies, and then Jamie Lee Curtis can teleport across New York City. Fuck her.
I know, and see that little simple little things in editing can make such a make or break a movie,
um,
period. That's just the fact,
when
okay? And that's why it's important to have a little extra money here and there to make sure you have a good editor.
and I'm just gonna say that we were supposed to get a 3 film series for Mr. Brooks, but instead, when Kevin Costner goes to kiss his wife or kiss his daughter goodnight, and he has that horrible scene where she
The
stabs
nightmare.
him with the scissors, that really, for me, once I read up on this movie, I accepted that as like, this is as close as we're going to get to a sequel. Watching her kill him off in a dream sequence is about it. So just enjoy this. This is it's not as, I mean, nothing's really ever as good as Big Trouble in Little China and the unofficial sequel that John Carpenter loved, which is the video for David Lopan Style, which, if you have seen that video, you understand what I'm saying. John Carpenter loved that video, and he put some people in it that were alive at the time the video was filmed that were in the original movie, like 15 or 20 years later.
Uh-huh.
You get a chance to see kind of like, if we're going to do a parody but theme it to David Lopan, we're going to do a damn good job. And that's about as, the dream sequence where Kevin Costner gets killed by his own daughter, that's about as good as we're going to get, because we have Hollywood normies out there that make things not so good. And I hate to say that, but this movie has a lot of promise in it. I would give it a 7 out of 10, because a lot of things in this movie just hit really well. Like William Hurt and Kevin Costner, they could have done an entire movie together.
Well, they pretty much did, because almost every single scene, that Kevin Costner was in, so was he.
Yes, but I
So and their interaction between each other was just phenomenal. I mean, it made the movie for me. I mean, it would have been an okay movie if Kevin Costner just did his scenes, you know what I mean, without him in it,
without
but
it.
because they put him in it to interact with him as like his battle in his mind, basically,
Yes.
it was just took it over the top for me. To me, I'm giving this movie a 9, not an 8,
Wow. Okay.
simply because to me, they're two the two of them interacting to me in the believable way that they did to me is almost worthy of an Oscar to me.
Strong words.
It
I
is. It
I
is. But how many movies have you seen where you've had this type of interaction between one person
Okay. Okay,
that
hold
was
on.
believable?
I'm
I
going
mean,
to take you
think
back
about
to
it.
2002 to Lord of
Mhm.
the Rings, The Two Towers. We got to see Gollum and Andy Serkis play both sides of that coin, and it was the best we have ever had for a sociopath with split personalities.
Yeah, but that was one person.
But at the same time, he did the job of Kevin Costner and William Hurt, two actors of that I have a lot of respect for. William Hurt saved the 1990-esque version of Dune on Sci-Fi Channel. His Leto Atreides was great. And I
Mhm.
know I'm going to cause some problems here. People are like, yeah, it doesn't compare to the 1984 version. But no, he did a good job with Leto Atreides, and he honored the work of Frank Herbert with his portrayal of that singular character. He's a great actor, but I'm mainly just saying that I think for him doing that, that was great. But you have one movie with one character going back and forth where the camera flips from one side of him to the other, and that's Gollum arguing with himself about how he's going to get the fucking ring. and that
Yep.
was so good. Gollum is my favorite character in the Lord of the
And
Rings
it
trilogy.
was. I loved all those movies, and I thought it was very different, but it was a totally different, realm. It was a totally different, character. I mean, the whole background to Gollum is totally not anything to relatable to a serial killer. And the narcissistic, um, God, what cauldron that's being mixed around inside of the one person's head.
Yes.
To me, that's the difference, the separation between it. I mean, like the conversation that he has in the kitchen between Marshall and Earl. Okay, when Marshall looks at Earl and says, "She did it, didn't she?" Okay. And then you got Earl and he says, "Yeah, it's going to take the cost about a week." And the whole time he's drinking the glass of water, looking out the window. Okay. Trying to focus in his head, what is he going to do about it? What choice is he going to make? And then he says, "They're going to come back and arrest her." And then Marshall goes, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he's like, that's when he starts crying. And that's when Marshall hugs him, even though he's not even there. But in his mind, he's hugging himself to
Yes.
comfort himself because of what he's going through, because he might lose the one thing that means anything to him. You know, the only person in the whole world that he's willing to die for, because he is a serial killer with no empathy, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
So he's portraying this whole storm is going off in his brain within seconds while he's drinking a glass of water
Nope.
in the
Nope. I
kitchen,
thought I was drinking milk.
thinking about his daughter. And then he says, um, "Oh God, I was afraid about this since before she was born. She has what I have." And that's when he realizes at that moment that his daughter is a serial killer,
Hmm.
or is going to be. Has she hurt anyone before? Is this her first time? And they think, yeah, it's his first time because she's such a mess. And then that's when Marshall said, "Yes, she does have it, but you're always smart about it. She was stupid.
Yep.
She did it because she got off, okay? I understand that. She's in it for fun. I understand. But
Sure.
why didn't she think it through? A hatchet, and she left it there, okay? So, and this is the same person, supposedly the same person, but two different entities in the same space, basically, because they are the same person. The fact that you have two different people that don't even look alike, okay,
Mhm.
portraying the same person, and it's believable, and you can see it, you can visualize it in your head
Yeah.
simply due to the acting, okay? To me, that I've never seen that before in another movie. The only other movie to me that even comes close to this came years later in Fight Club.
That actually, this movie was made after.
Oh, it was? Okay, whatever. I didn't see it till years later.
Fight Club
But
was 99.
okay, well, they're this almost identical when it comes to your mind putting together that this is the same person.
True.
Now,
Yeah.
in the beginning of this movie, almost instantly, as soon as you see him come out of the back seat, lean forward, okay, while the husband and wife are driving, okay, you realize that that's his split personality. That's his dark passenger, or whatever you want to call it. Now, in Fight Club, it was later on when you realized that they were two different people. You know what I mean? You had more time went by.
Yeah.
Mm.
People say they like. I knew that Tyler Durden was actually uh whatever his name. He didn't even mention his name in that movie. Tyler Durden was the only one that identified himself in that film,
Yeah.
and the guy that played the main character, he never says his name whatsoever in that film. And so whenever everybody's telling him later on, like, no, you're Tyler Durden, it just kind of hits and you have to watch it all over again. Yeah.
Hmm.
But anyway,
But to me, though, that is what made this movie higher up for me. It's not just the story was really, really good. It was, the story was so believable to me. It was almost like the person writing it was a serial killer or did have a split personality, or he was sitting next to someone that was telling them
What it'd be like.
that
Yeah.
they were a serial killer, and to write down what I'm telling you, like Interview with a Vampire or something like that. The actually writing down word for word what this person went through or is going through as they were killing, in the process of uh, how they were going to try to stop killing again, because this person was able to stop killing. So was BTK.
Mhm.
Okay. BTK was able to turn it all off and had a family, had 2 kids and a wife, and had a job and did all this different stuff. And so did the Golden State Killer. Through a 30-year span, he had family and raised kids, and he was a police officer and blah blah blah. All the things that he was able to get away with, and was able to stop killing for short spans of time. And so it's factual when it comes to the real aspects of things that we know about real serial killers. So in a way, maybe that's one reason why I connected with these 2 characters, or this one character, uh, in the separation of the 2. One having is one of them is like the family man, the quirky, nerdy guy that makes boxes for a living. He has money, but he's very detailed in how he lays things out, and a very neat freak and everything. But the dark passenger is also in there, the one that wants to kill and be able to plan and enjoy the fun of the thrill of killing. Okay. And they're fighting and combating each other because one wants something the other one doesn't want, but it does, but is able to say no. And that's the reason why they went 2.5 years and not killing, because he was going to AA meetings and looking at himself as that I can do this, because he was looking at himself as it's an addiction. Just like the scene where he's telling, let me see if I can find it. He's telling Dane Cook, where is it? Hold on. I wrote down a couple things. And he said, I don't enjoy killing Mr. Smith. I do it because I'm addicted to it. You know what I mean? So when he said those things, it was believable to me. You know what I mean? As his character, because he in his mind believes he's addicted, not the fact that he's a psycho or that he's a sociopath. It's the fact that he just has an addiction, just like if someone was addicted to smoking or is addicted to eating food or sex. He trivialized people's lives being taken as it was like smoking a cigarette. How hard it is to put it out. So to me, that showed more of the narcissistic tendencies of him, because he was able to trivialize people's lives like there was just nothing, like taking a cigarette and throwing it on the ground and smashing it out, because it's a useless object basically. And he looked at everyone he'd murdered except in his life, and his wife, he looked like he cared about his wife, but when he looked at his daughter, there was a total different connection between him and his progeny, you know what I'm saying, than it was than anyone else that interacted with him in the whole movie. So for some reason, having this daughter made him have empathy that he would not normally have had if he'd never had a child. So that whole aspect of the character, even with William Hurt, because William Hurt's character had empathy for her too. When he's talking about the mistakes that she made and that she's not telling the truth, and what are you going to do about it? How are we going to fix this, mistake or whatever type of thing. And her being pregnant, I knew there was something else that she's hiding when they find out that this person was dead when the cops came. So even though Marshall in his mind wasn't the father of this girl, he still had empathy towards her by some of the comments that he made in the conversations that he had with his other side of his darkness. You know what I mean? So to me, that's what opened this whole thing for me and brought me into the movie, was their interaction between each other. These two phenomenal actors portraying the one character, which I thought was, I just never seen anything like that before. Because I saw Fight Club, which I thought was really good, but to me, the whole aspect of being two different people, two personalities in one person, was still not the same. The interaction between the two of them wasn't the same as this interaction between these two people portraying one person. It was a totally different realm in my view of it, the way I was looking at it. But the part where, let's see, we can get this part right here. Darn it, let me find it. Okay, and then the part where after he killed Dane Cook's character, and then he gets that, he's on that bus, I think it was a bus or a train, and he sees that woman's handbag, or no, he's at the cafe, and sees that woman's handbag and sees that purse, the phone sticking up out of it, the little flip phone,
Yes.
and then he takes it. And you don't realize that that's what he did until he's up on top of the buildings, and he calls Tracy Atwood, the detective. Okay, because basically she thinks that she has the serial killer, which was Dane Cook's character, right? He's missing. Nobody knows where he is because now he's in the grave. Okay, and you're never going to find him. But his DNA was left at the scene, and nobody could find him because he'd already supposedly moved out of his apartment or whatever else, because he felt like somebody was harassing him and they were about to catch him. So it's got all that. But when he calls her on the phone, and she says Atwood, and he goes, why are you a cop? Because he still wants to understand, because he can't help it, to understand where she's coming from, because she's different. She's not the same as all the other detectives and other people.
All the other detectives have a definable, like, there's a reason why they're a cop. This one here, there's it's a mystery. Like, this is something, like, if they ever do a sequel to this movie, you're going to find out, like, she's probably driven just to get her own identity because she hates living in the shadow of her father.
Well, it's just like she said when she's talking to him. She says, because he says, she goes, "Who is this?" And then Errol Brooks says, "You're rich. You have a good education. You could have gone into your father's business, but instead you became successful on your own. Why?" And the reason he's investigating this, and this whole thing came up, is the conversation between Marshall and him about their daughter. And he says, because he wants his daughter to be able to find her own way. Instead of living off of him or taking over his business, he wants to see her be able to be capable of doing something, finding her own way in life without him having to supply it for her. And that when he interacted with Tracy Atwood's character, it gave him hope for his daughter. See, so it opened a new avenue of
Respect.
Her having a chance to survive in the world, that when he's not there anymore, he won't be able to fix her mistakes for her, that she'll still be able to do something for herself, because if this woman can do it, his daughter can do it. Okay. So that whole aspect of it to me was very intriguing. And then he says, and she says, "If you don't tell me who you are, I'm going to hang up." And he goes, "You didn't really think your husband's killing was random, did you?"
Yes.
And I certainly didn't have to give you Meeks. Okay. So she's now realizing Mr. Baffert, she thinks that it's that guy, but she knows it doesn't sound like him.
Yep.
He says, "Well, I have a little cold." And then she goes, "Where are you?" And he goes, "I'll tell you if you give me an answer to my question." And then she pauses for a minute and she looks at her partner, because they're trying to get they're in a hurry trying to get a tap on the phone while she's on there. And she says, "My father was very disappointed that I was born a girl, and he let me know it. I've spent my whole life trying to prove him wrong."
Mhm.
And then Earl Brooks smiles and says, "Thank you." And she goes, "Wait a minute, you promised to tell me where you are." And he says, "Me? I'm on top of a building." And he
Neither
shuts
do
the
I.
phone, and then he drops the phone off the roof of the
Yep.
building, and it falls and it shatters into 1,000 pieces on the ground. So I just thought that was a phenomenal way of leaving you and me as the watcher to realize that now he realizes that he's going to have it all. He's got he got to kill all this time. He got to fill his fetish, and he got rich because he found his own way in his own niche in life, and now he's going to be a grandparent very soon. His daughter has the same curse as he does, but she's going to find her own way because he's going to help her.
Mhm.
So see, he thinks he's got the best of everything because he still believes he's smarter than everyone around him. So he did win at that match, but we still don't know whether or not he'll get caught later on or whether the daughter will even get caught.
See,
So
I think this is where I can safely say in the trivia section of IMDb for the
mhm,
film, it discusses how the second movie kind of broadens the relationship with the father and daughter and how she's, mom, and she occasionally cuts some time loose for her and her desire to do this. And then the third movie, she kills her dad to basically inherit everything and to complete the cycle. And therefore, I don't feel bad by telling you spoilers, but that's how it's supposed to end. And whenever I was watching this before I read that, and she's having him bleed all over the place. The only time I've ever seen a death scene like that was Pee Wee Herman in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the
yeah.
Vampire Slayer had fucking Pee Wee Herman murderously just bleeding all over the city as he's gotten staked by Buffy, and he's like "Ugh," for like a half hour, and throughout the whole credits, you don't know what's going on, and then the final thing you see for Buffy the Vampire Slayers, he finally dies. Paul Rubens finally dies from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Ugh! You know, and Kevin Costner does this Paul Rubin-esque death scene all over this bed. He just bleeds everywhere. I mean, there ain't no hiding what's going on in this bedroom. And I'm like,
Oh,
wow,
yeah.
he's really bleeding all over the place. Well, that's gonna suck clean that up. And then he kind of wakes up and he's mumbling in his sleep a little bit, and his wife is right next to him, and there's no cuts or scrapes or scissors sticking out of his neck. Okay, this is good. This is good. He's fearful of his daughter's capacity. This is a good way to end a movie. And after I read that on the trivia side, I'm like, this movie is complete because they give you enough in the trivia side to where you can have your own internal movie and no director fucks it up for you. No
Mhm.
miserable fucking feminist bullshit director comes out and ruins two good movies with a shitty third movie, or ruins 20 years of a solid comic book, which was tongue in cheek the whole time, with a miserable feminist TV show on Marvel, MCU, Disney Plus. Nobody ruins it for you. You've got it all in your head, and you can just enjoy it.
Well, that's the good thing about all novels, though. Any book that you get to read, each person that reads it takes a little bit different perspective in it, and you fill in the gaps with your imagination. And that's why the book is always better than
Now,
any TV show or any movie that you could watch. Reading the book is going to be better simply because your imagination is better than any
correct.
movie. And I wanted to make sure Shadow and Son realized that I'm not saying that this movie is like that movie. I just said the comparison between having two personalities inside one mind. That's what I was talking about. The
Yeah.
only other movie I'd ever watched that reminded me of the conversations between William Hurt's character and Kevin Costner's character. The only other movie that even came remotely close to that was Fight Club, because you had the two people dueling in the one
Body.
personality.
Yeah.
So that's the only comparison. I don't think they're even any type of the same type of movie to even compare that type of story to one another, because they're not anything remotely near. But the only thing that was even remotely the same would be the two dueling personalities inside one brain, and both of them wanted out. One
Mhm.
character wanted out of it, and the other one didn't. So uh, uh, good won over each of them, basically,
And
from the way it ended, because the good part goodest I can't remember if I said that, the good part of the person that wanted to be get on with their life and live a normal life to the best of their ability won out over the evil side of it. So to me, they did it in two totally different ways of doing it, but that's what they resembled to me. Those two things were similar to me
Elle,
in the script.
I don't know if Elle's familiar with the trivia section of this movie. I got
No, I don't, just like I told you, I try not to go to IMDb simply for the fact I want to come up with, and when I'm talking about it, I want to come up with it through my visualization from my own point of view of what I viewed and what came from me, my thought process of it. Like what I said, the conversations between the one person, talking to himself about what he sees in his daughter, what he sees in Dane Cook's character, what he sees in his wife, what he sees in all the people around him, compared to what he sees in himself, is what made the movie very interesting to me, and how his two personalities, or his dark passenger compared to his normal person, who he was, quirky, uh, nerd type millionaire that worked his way up and built his own business to be a millionaire. That's what was interesting, and how he portrayed that person. And that's what I thought was so dynamic and interesting in it. And then you brought in the other character because you had to have the very, very smart detective. And she was. I mean, she came that close, and she knew that Dane Cook's character, simply by the way he acted and his mannerisms, that he knew something,
Mhm.
that he saw something, that he knew something, and that he was the key to putting the whole thing together. And she was right. Now, she'll never know for sure, because the serial killer was one step ahead of her at the whole time. And we didn't realize how far ahead he was until she went to that apartment where she bumped into Meeks, simply because she went to that apartment and found out uh, that Dane Cook's character has moved out, and then went to the other place to find out. And that's when she punched her partner out, because he was going to arrest her, thinking that she had something to do with killing her
Right.
ex.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was so sad about it, is because you see all these other police movies, detective movies, stuff, and the partners are willing to lie for their partner and do anything for their partner or the other cops, because they're all on the same team and we got to defend each other. Well, this one was not like that. To me, this one was more realistic in the aspect that he just didn't like her. He didn't like the way she handled things and how she did things, and how she seemed to get special, you know, treatment simply because she was rich or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know what it was, but you could tell from the get-go that he didn't really even want to be around her. He didn't want to hang with her, like we were talking about earlier. So her having to say, well, you know, I wasn't even here or whatever type thing when she left. And and I thought that was a very believable thing. And I thought it added to the dynamics of the action part of the movie. And the only scene to me that even remotely damaged this movie was the scene that you were talking about, where three guns have seemingly unending amount of bullets, in the whole scene, which was really stupid. I cannot believe, to me, that was just a huge, huge editing error, and how anyone let that fly by without noticing it, to me, doesn't make any sense, because there's no way even a person that would um, not know anything about guns would say, well, golly, those guns must have like one of those long things hanging out with all these bullets and just keep feeding into it. because it just keeps going and going and going, and it's impossible, for that many shots to come from 3 weapons.
There's a funny thing about what L says here. He says, "Watch more Yui Bowl. He loves repeating the Carrie shower scene with silly amounts of buckets of blood, making everything look like a bad joke." And it's funny because this movie was made around 2006, and Yui Bowl had offered this movie or his movie, a Dungeon Siege, a Farmer's Tale, or Farmer, a Dungeon Siege Tale, to
Mhm.
Kevin Costner, because he's like, "Hey, I'd love to have you add in this movie, Kevin Costner. It really adds some gravitas to it, and we could make some money because it's a tax loophole in Canada for me to make movies, and that's why Huey Boll is a movie director, and he's not a shoe salesman because that's about all his talent that he has." And I'm not insulting anybody that went to Polk High School that scored 4 touchdowns in one day, but I'm going to say that Huey Boll's a talentless fucking hack. So
Yeah.
now that I said that, Kevin Costner, who likes Yui Bowl, he's like, "No, Yui, I'm in the mood to shop around, and I'm looking for somebody to do this script. It's the most perfect script I've ever read." And whenever Kevin Costner read this script, he went back to the script writers and said, "This is the most perfect script I've ever read." They took a whole day off to celebrate because they're like, "Wow, that's the most perfect script you've ever read." Kevin Costner's like, "It's probably one of the top 3. This is the greatest I've ever read." And they're like, "Wow, that's cool." And Yui Bowl looks at the script and he's like, "Nah, not my thing. I'm making video game movies." And he left.
Mhm.
It's fucking hilarious because Yui Bowl could have actually written or could have actually gotten into an actual movie with a script and a plot and actors that are not like, God, I hate to say this, but Lily Sobieski quality. And she's not a good actress. I liked her in Joyride. That was about it. But I'm telling you that Yui Bowl could have been somebody. He could have been a contender, and this movie could have been, had it been given a little more love. No, L wasn't Field of Dreams. This was his best script that Costner ever read. Um, Yui Bowl could have directed this movie because Costner was shopping for a director because Bruce Evans, the director, hadn't directed a movie since Cuffs in 1990 or 1982, 87. It was like 15 years since this movie had come out, since Bruce Evans had actually directed a film. And Evans was involved with the writing of it, or he was involved with the writing room when it came out, but he wasn't thinking about directing it. He wasn't on that level. He wasn't thinking it was going to be him. So that just made me laugh that L puts in Yui Bowl movies are really bad. They look like, they're bad jokes because of all the blood and shit. It's like a Nickelodeon. You can't do that on television with all the grease
Yeah.
coming off the ceiling and just splashing the participants. Uh, this movie does a lot of things really well. I'm sorry that I don't enjoy it as much as other people do. This is a fantastic movie if you are into criminal psychosis, or if you're into criminal justice, or you just watch a lot of crime crap on your streaming services. This is a good movie. And I hate to say it like that, but I mean, you
Well,
guys
to
know,
me, it's like a realistic,
yeah,
um, it's like a realistic. I mean, like right now, what's the number one show right now? I think it's on Netflix. Is the Dahmer Show?
yeah, the Dahmer Show, which is funny,
Okay,
getting ripped to
which is
shreds.
based on a real live serial killer and how perverted and sick and disgusting he was.
Yeah,
Okay. And to fact that people don't want to face the fact that people like that actually exist on a daily basis in our world. Okay. And these people thrive off taking the lives of other people. And that's the scary fact. A lot of people don't wanna believe that. People don't wanna face the fact that we have people like that born every day,
yeah,
and they're gonna grow up, and they're gonna cannibalize people, they're gonna kill people, and get enjoyment of watching these people die, and a lot of people don't wanna believe that. But that's why I thought, and this came out, what was it? You said 2007?
hmm,
Okay. That was a while back, but to me, I do like documentaries. I like watch lots of documentaries. History Channel is one of my favorite channels that I watch, and Discovery Channel, a few other. It used to be Court TV years ago. I used to like that because I like all those types of shows that have the real life documentaries on it. And it's not always about crime or
No.
serial killers, but the fact is the whole aspect of how the detective looked into the crime, the details behind why she kept making certain decisions and why she was pointing in certain directions. And to me, I thought that was believable. Even her boss, when she's like, her boss tells her, well, you got to stop doing this, that, and the other. And she's like, get over it. You're
Hmm.
getting a divorce. It happens
Yeah.
every day. You
Yeah.
know, different aspects like that to me that were very believable for what could be possible, for whatever's going on.
I
So,
gotta ask because L puts a good question in chat here. He says, "I know you both don't try to compare films, but what do you think of this Psycho movie versus to the Joaquin Phoenix in Joker?
oh, I didn't see that movie.
You haven't seen Joker yet?
Mm-mm.
Well, I know what's going on in February." Um, and then L says the Dahmer show is a little overrated because it's put in the gay section. Okay, listen, uh, Dahmer was $3 bill gay. He there's not more gay than Dahmer. Dahmer was super gay, and I hate to say it like that, but I mean, Janet's messing around with her settings there. This movie uh, doesn't have that little level of schlock that the Netflix Dahmer's got. It's an interesting study. I wouldn't say Dahmer's entertaining. Yeah, Bowser's like, Dahmer was gay as fuck. Yes, he is. And Cal's like, don't worry, the police are going to protect us. No, they're not. Just protect yourself. You'll be fine. The police don't protect, they throw around the law. Um, I was kind of hoping Janet would be in here because I wanted to announce next week's movie, but um, this is the Dahmer thing. It's a fad. It's going to be on Netflix for years to come, just like the Daredevil 3 seasons that are excellent. Unlike the rest of the Marvel Netflix universe, which is not so excellent. I mean, I watched The Defenders, and by episode 3, I'm getting sick of it. Episode 4, they finally fight as a team. Boring as fuck. It's a hallway fight. Anyway, Bowser's like, I'm never gonna watch Joker. Um, Shadow Sun says something I really enjoyed. I loved watching Robert De Niro get whacked. That I have watched that part of the movie over and over and over and over and over and over and over again because I used to like Robert De Niro, and then one day I discovered he had TDS, and it kind of ruined him for me. You know,
What did he have? I'm sorry, I missed it. I accidentally
he,
unplugged myself.
he's got Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh,
He can't
oh,
handle
okay.
Republicans. He can't handle half the nation.
Mm-mm.
Like the 80% of the people that pay for fucking movies are probably people that pay their taxes diligently and love watching a De Niro flick like Raging Bull, Godfather, etc. And here's Robert De Niro insulting a president. Fuck Trump. You know, it's like, dude, stop that. You're gonna ruin the perception that people have of you. There might be half of the people that love you and they want to suck your dick or tickle your ass or give you a black girl to play with. I don't give a shit. But the other half of America that like Trump, like totally just shit canned you. You are file 13 for the rest of us. So I and Bowsette, she's when Bowsette's in chat, Bowsette and I are not the same person. Bowsette's a woman. Bowsette is not Bruce. However, if Bowsette says something, I have not seen anything Bowsette says that I wouldn't say aloud with a loudspeaker on camera. Because I won't sign off on TDS or believe that cow farts are killing the planet. You're right. And I don't either. I think we do have climate change. It's called seasonal change. But Janet, I want to ask you, I'm going to take you back to 2008.
Mhm.
Do you remember Bradley Cooper in 2008?
Um, not no, A-Team, I guess, maybe? Was he in that movie?
He was in that movie. He played
Okay.
Face. Good
Yeah,
movie.
I thought that was a good movie. I'm trying to think of any other movie I remember him being in. I think he was in a movie with Bette Midler, or
I don't
was
know.
it was it Lady Gaga or something?
Yeah, he was in a movie not long ago,
Born
Business.
something? I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember, I
A
can't
Star Is
remember.
Born.
A Star Is Born, yeah. Okay.
But I'm talking about Bradley Cooper in 2008 because the movie I want to watch for next month or for next week is themed for October.
Mhm.
It is a movie called Midnight Meat Train.
I haven't seen it.
Good.
But let
I
me let
think
me let me
it's
get some
it's
paper.
a Clive Barker based film. So I'm just going to lay that right there on the altar and let
Clive
you.
Barker. Okay, I've heard of him, and it's
Okay,
called Meat Train?
The Midnight Meat Train. It is one of my favorite gory movies. The special effects in this movie, both CGI and practical effects, are great. And it is, yeah, I've read the Books of Blood. They're amazing. The Books of Blood goes deeper into this movie, but for the purposes of the Midnight Meat Train, if you have questions about it after you've watched it, it is a amazing horror film.
And, I the only one I remember seeing, I don't know when it was called Terror Train or something. It had Jamie Lee Curtis in it.
I stay away from her films, except for the
And
Halloween movies.
and it had what was that famous magic guy?
Penn and Teller,
No, the, darn it, I can't remember the name
David
of it.
Copperfield.
Yeah, David Copperfield was in this, and it was on a train, and it was like a college group of college people riding a train, and people were being murdered on it. And it was called Terror Train.
This is kind of like it, but not. This is much better.
And so I don't know. If you say, how do you know? If you said you had seen it, I haven't seen this one,
But
but I'm
just
gonna watch
based on just what you said, I'm just going to let you know this is kind of like that, but much better.
The Midnight Meat Train. Okay,
Yes,
well,
ma'am.
I'm definitely gonna watch it. And what was his name again?
Bradley Cooper is in
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper and I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. That guy, Vinny,
Oh,
whatever,
Vinny,
COVID Fog Brain, Vinny
Vinny,
Jones.
yeah, Vinny Jones.
Vinny Jones is
Yeah,
in this
I know
movie,
him. He was Juggernaut. Yeah, in X
and
Men.
then Brooke Shields is in it as well.
Brooke
Which
Shields.
yes, she does.
Wow.
She does a fantastic job of looking like a socialite in New York City. But this is, yeah,
Well,
six
she is
nations,
it.
31
She
things. Yes,
is,
sir.
isn't she?
Say
Brooke
again. Yeah,
Shields
she is.
is a socialite from New York City.
Yeah, yeah. She does a great job in this movie playing herself. But this is a great film. It's for science, and it definitely is one of those movies that when you're watching it, I'm thinking about checking out how Discord does with like Aaron movies. We'll see how that works. And might be one of those things. Midnight Meat Train. I expect at least 12 inches, says Bowsette. All right, Bowsette.
of
So I'm going to go
of a
for a
knife, of a long knife, butcher knife.
there's so much. It's so much blood. ah,
So that's a
right.
good slasher then.
It's a great slasher film. Perfect October movie.
Well,
I mean, it is. This is a film that my wife watched like 2 minutes of, and she's like, "I'm leaving."
well,
And
she's
the other
probably
room,
because she's got really good taste. You know what I mean? I don't really like slasher movies. I mean, like, Halloween and all these movies where people just getting hacked up, kill the virgins or whatever type
there's
stuff.
so
I've
many.
never got into that.
There's so many things this movie ties into, and things that we already discuss. That's why I want you to watch it. It's not the fact I want you to see blood for blood's sake, but
Yeah. But that's fine.
holy shit.
I'm ready to watch it. I'll watch it.
Okay,
And it reminds me of all my friends loved all those movies, all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all that stuff. And I've always been into
this is a step up from
oh
those.
really?
Yeah,
Okay, well that then I might think it's pretty good then
yeah.
if it's better than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But,
Well,
some of those movies were pretty good. I mean, like, what was that one about Camp Crystal Lake? What was that one?
Crystal
Was
Lake is Friday
was
the
that the first Jason movie?
Friday the 13th series started at
Okay.
Crystal Lake, and it
That
wasn't
one
Jason, it was
I
his
thought
mom.
was really good. Yeah, Kevin Bacon was in it, right?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that was a pretty good scary movie for the
Mhm.
overall story behind
Yes.
it, but then after it, when you have this guy that's all bloated and swampy ass and all that stuff keeps coming back, he's just, when it gets like that, to me, it just gets stupid. So
Shadow
I
and
just
Sun, don't be talking about Fire in the Sky anymore. That might be my second movie of October, okay? You've
Was
seen
that
it.
one an alien abduction movie?
It is.
Okay, I think I like that one. If it's what I'm thinking it is, that was a
Travis
good one.
Walton experience.
But I love anything to do with aliens, alien abduction. What was that one with the Devil's Tower in it?
No, you're talking about Close Encounters of the Third
Yeah,
Kind?
Close Encounters. That was
I just
excellent.
watched that movie like 2 weeks ago.
So things like that, it's still scary though. To me, any of those movies like that are scary thrillers, that type of movie, they all fit in the same thing, but that also falls under sci-fi to me.
But this movie here, it kind of gets into that. It kind of gets into like Eldritch horror slash like pre antediluvian stuff. So, and that's me talking about the books of blood that it's based on. But we got to. I want you to watch this movie, and I want you to enjoy it or as much as you can, and then we'll talk about it because this is like the perfect Midnight Meat Train is like a great um October film because it does so many things well, and it really never apologizes for it. There's movies that when you watch them, like you get the feeling like at the very end of the show, like the director and the producer, they're hat in hand. We had to show you guys some really nasty stuff. We had to make the kids kind of scared, but the movie's over, and we want you all to go and just have normal lives. And if you need therapy, there's therapists out there. This movie doesn't do a fucking thing like that. It just amazingly just it makes you feel blow for blow in this movie, and you suffer with Bradley Cooper. So I really help. Just a fat gamer says, I feel that way during an Arby's commercial. Thank you, Stephen. I love
Well,
having Stephen around. He's such a good YouTuber. Ah, final thoughts on this movie that we watched tonight, which was Mr. Brooks.
I really liked it. I think it's a really good thriller. If you want to know or kind of see maybe what the inside of a serial killer's mind might really be like, uh, um, I don't know why anyone would want to, but the thrill of wanting to see inside or kind of get a sample of what could possibly be in there, and whether or not serial killers can feel empathy for someone else. Uh, to me, that whole look and the way that he interacted with himself and made decisions for his life based on his interactions with his split personality or his darkness or whatever you want to call it. To me, that is what the whole movie was based on. And to me, I just thought the two actors that they chose to put in this movie to show the development and the way that the character arcs because of the daughter's changes in her life and maturing and becoming a woman, and how it affected him. I thought it was phenomenal between the two actors. I mean, even if none of the other actors were in it and we just did the whole movie around just these two actors, I think it would have been great.
It would have
I
been a better
loved it.
movie. It would have
Well,
been a better movie with
the
just those
thing
two.
is, I didn't get the option to find out that. All I know is I got a small taste of something that I thought was perfection when it came to the interaction between two phenomenal actors portraying a one character, which I thought was very unique. And I just thought it was excellent. I loved it. Now, just like I said, I'm gonna give it a 9, and I probably would have gave it a 9.5 simply because of the stupid editing for the gunfight in the hallway when Demi Moore meets up with Meeks in the hallway on accident. And
Yeah.
the fact that she had her back to him and was that oblivious after being so hands-on everything else, that just that one scene, it just took away it just took a big bite. Yeah, it took a huge chunk. Maybe I should give it an 8 now that I'm thinking about it. It's because that one scene took a huge chunk out of an excellent movie, in
Yeah.
my point of view, simply because of the editing. I mean, to me, that almost all went down to the editing because the gunfight looked real. The way they held the weapons, the way they shot, the way they kept ducking up and down into the deep doorways, things like that, and the lighting and everything, and the lights going out, the special effects or whatever you want to have, and then the actual shots when she shot him in the back and the blood coming out, the realism of that, and the whole thing leaning down into the hallway and all that stuff was all a very good interaction between the people for the action part of this scene. It's the fact that these guns had way more bullets than there'd ever be possible
Yeah. You
for
had
it
a
to be
wagon
believable.
like
It's
this.
very noticeable, and it does. It's yeah, the gun they would had to have bags full of bullets basically and keep reloading their weapon to have had that many shots going off. So that did take a big chunk out for the realism it took out of the movie to me. But besides that, I thought besides that one editing fiasco in that one spot, I thought the actors were great.
Yeah.
The script was phenomenal. The direction was great. I mean, and the scenery, the leading up to every scene, all that stuff, I thought was believable, uh, memorable, and I just thought it was a very well done movie. Besides the editing and that, especially in that one part of the movie where they put it together, it was just cheaply done. I don't know what happened, but it they just they dropped the ball on that part of it.
They only had $100 to spend that day. Um,
Maybe.
I'm going to say this movie's a 7. I'm going to continue to hold to that, and I want you guys to understand like this movie does a lot of things right. That one scene just totally took it down from an 8 for me, and I know that sounds
Mhm,
bad, but I just thought it was it was schlock at that point, and I'm like, God damn it! But there's that aspect between Marshall and Evan that is just amazing to watch. And it reminds me of the movie Heartbreakers with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Olympia Dukakis. And when you watch that movie, that has that same feel between those two characters and these two characters here. Because actually, not Jennifer Love Hewitt, but it's Sigourney Weaver and Olympia Dukakis. My bad.
mhm. Yeah.
But the mother daughter pair in that the grandmother and mother together, like they could have made an entire fucking movie off those two just
Mhm,
grifting through America, and I would have watched that movie till the cows came home. And my
mhm,
girlfriend at the time and I, we went to watch that movie, and we thought there was two films we went to see because it felt like that. You have the plot with Gene Hackman and Sigourney Weaver trying to get together, and Sigourney Weaver
mhm,
bankrupt Gene Hackman, and then you have when Mommy comes to town, Olympia Dukakis meets up with Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver's just like in awe of all the things that Olympia does. She's like, I still have so much to learn from you. Please don't die. And I'm like,
mhm,
ah, that's a great film. Um, the Heartbreakers is one of my favorites. It's a stupid rom com, yes, but for being a stupid rom com, we've got the great late Ray Liotta, Sigourney Weaver, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Gene Hackman all in one film. And anytime you have Gene Hackman in a movie, like I just sit down. The popcorn's popping right now.
mhm,
So next week we'll be discussing my favorite really gory film. Like I don't think there's a film out there that does blood better than this. And I know that sounds bad. As a butcher, my one of my previous gigs as a butcher, this movie's pretty close to that. And
mhm,
uh, one of the main characters is a butcher in this movie, so he's got the movements down. He's got everything down pat. The way he goes about his business, both varieties. You're gonna watch it and think, what the hell's wrong with Bruce? We should admit him. Something's wrong with him. It's such a good movie. Oh my god, I love Midnight Meat Train. It's and a lot, and it's not that it's such a great film, but it is a movie that it begs for discussion, and that's one of those things that I think that you're gonna like it, Janet.
Well, good. I'm gonna enjoy it watching it because it's something I haven't seen before. And so far, all the movies that I haven't seen that you got me to watch so far, I've really enjoyed. So
I'm not gonna do a Willy's Wonderland to you, I promise.
I've already seen that one. Well, 15, 20 minutes of it.
Okay. Everybody in chat, you guys have the chat's on fire right now, and you guys went from talking about Queen of the Dam to Justin Cook talking about that one once here on YouTube. Shadow and Sons like Bruce, stick to your guns, keep it a 7. Yeah, I know, but no, it's great. Come back next week. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite Clive Barker stories, and I really hope you guys enjoy that. Let me know if you have any comments that you want to add to this. Drop them in the comment section. We're going to just cut video and go to the green room. Everybody that's here, thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'd give you a beer or a glass of wine, good wine, not like box wine. I'm not the target demographic for She-Hulk. Okay, I have bottle wine, screw top bottle, not like cork top bottle. But appreciate you all being here. Janet, you want to walk us out?
Yeah, thank you guys for coming, and we really appreciate it, and it makes us feel good to know that you are interested in what we might have to say about a movie. So thank you so much. Can't wait to see you guys next week.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.